Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight on our news.
Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis tackles the controversy surrounding the National Honors List.
The Shantytown Action Task Force makes clear what the options are for those evicted Shantytown residents.
A former Attorney General is speaking out against the government's actions towards Shantytown residents.
An Anglican archdeacon is the latest religious leader to throw his support behind medicinal marijuana.
Our news is brought to you by Alive.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. I'm Christina Dragovich. Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis weighing in on a number of national issues today, speaking to the press on the sidelines of a ceremony marking the extension of the Sunset Close subdivision. Dr. Minnis taking on critics over the decision to bestow a national honor on former Premier, the late Sir Roland Simonet. The Prime Minister also speaking out about his political future. Jasmine Brown reports.
The move to honor Sir Roland, who is also the former leader of the United Bahamian Party, has sparked national debate, with many criticizing the move. Anglerston MP Glenys Hannah Martin has been one of the most high-profile and vocal critics. In a post on her Facebook page, she categorized the decision as perverse and charged that it is an attempt to rewrite history.
We must go beyond colors. So I don't see people like that.
Along with Sir Roland, former Prime Minister the late Sir Lyndon Pinling, former Governor General the late Sir Milo Butler, and former Free National Movement leader the late Sir Cecil Wallace Whitfield were also awarded the honor of the Order of National Hero. But Hannah Martin and PLB Chairman Senator Fred Mitchell, who is a member of the Advisory Committee for National Honors, said Sir Roland should not have been included on that list. The Prime Minister says it appears the PLP is playing the race card.
It would appear that way, but that's a word I take out of my dictionary. I don't go down that road.
Minister of Trade and Immigration Brent Simonet, who is Sir Roland's son, had no comment on the matter when asked on Wednesday. However, in an interview with the Nassau Guardian in 2012, he said he was proud of his father and would remain proud all his life. The controversy surrounding the National Honors List is just one of many topics the Prime Minister tackled today, as he also talked about his future in politics. While delivering the keynote address at the Sunset Close extension ceremony, Minnis told attendees that the Bahamian people have 9 more years of him. He was asked about those comments and if his administration still planned on implementing a 2-term limit for prime ministers.
You're going for running another term.
Oh, you are so intelligent, yes.
And you're confident you'll win.
That's what I love about you, you're smart.
So when are we going to see those term limits, I guess, pass in the House of Assembly?
It would come in under my term, believe me, because I certainly do not want to go more than 2.
Any firm timeline on when that's going to come?
No, all I can say, it will come. It will come. Let's put it like that.
In May, Attorney General Carl Bethel publicly revealed consultation on bills establishing term limits for prime ministers and fixed dates for election will begin before the end of the year. Reporting for our news, I'm Jasmine Brown.
The Prime Minister also revealing today that Cabinet is set to discuss the formation of the Marijuana Committee when it meets on Monday.
I would put it forth to my Cabinet colleagues to seek suggestions in terms of names. We would want to put that together as soon as possible. Names from Christian Council, NGOs, University of Bahamas, get a broad spectrum involvement.
The issue of whether marijuana ought to be decriminalized in the region was high on CARICOM's agenda. The Regional Marijuana Commission, which presented its report to CARICOM on the social, economic, health, and legal issues surrounding marijuana in the region, forwarded the view that in a regulated framework, marijuana should be treated similarly to tobacco and alcohol. The Prime Minister says the committee, once established, will present the findings of the CARICOM Regional Commission on marijuana to the public. Today, Minnis said his administration will provide the committee with the tools it needs to get a national consensus on marijuana.
And give them about 3 to 4 months to report and provide the necessary funds that would be necessary so they can travel to the Family Island and do a national overview And after the report is completed, that will be tabled in Parliament, and a copy will be given to the press. It will be debated, discussed, after which we would then go from there.
A little later, we'll bring you the story of an Anglican priest who explains why he'll be supporting medical marijuana as the debate over the controlled substance continues. In other news, the Shantytown Action Task Force is giving residents their options as a countdown to eviction looms. Jillian Gray reports.
With little over 4 weeks to go before 1,500 Shantytown residents have to vacate their homes, many of those residents are questioning what the government is going to do for those who say they have nowhere to go.
The government is not spending any money with respect to relocation of the residents.
Folks said 99% of Shantytown residents are employed. Thus, there is an assumption that they are able to pay rent. With that in mind, the task force has put together a list of vacant rental properties.
The average price is between $400 and $800 per month. The same thing what they pay in the Shantytown. So we have more than just on 200 vacancies as it stands, and the cooperation between the Haitian communities, which is led by some of the Haitian leaders, has been contacting our office in the last couple of days, and we have been assisting them as best as we can on trying to find alternative houses.
Only about 10 persons have reached out to the committee to take advantage of the housing listing. And while many have said they do not have anywhere to go, folks said, according to reports he's getting, many have found refuge with family members.
I'm told that it depends on who we listen to. Anywhere from 30 to 70% of the residents of the Shantytowns have already moved. We are now doing a survey. We have a group of persons who started this morning who are identifying all of the vacant dwellings in the Shantytowns of people who've already moved. And the initial report is that it is significant. So the residents are taking this very seriously.
Although the Shantytown structures are against the Building Regulations Act, there is no word as to whether the leaseholders will be charged.
Cabinet at some point will make a decision as to the legal implications and the results of any infractions of our laws with respect to the leaseholders of all of the properties.
Many of the Shantytown properties date back to 1997. The task force said it is well within its rights to demolish the buildings, and eviction notices have already been given out. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jillian Gray.
Well, the government's treatment of Shantytown residents is parasitic and feeding xenophobia in the country, according to former Attorney General Alfred Sears. Now he says it's up to the government to create change. Giorgio Bain tells us more.
As the Shantytown Action Task Force advances into local communities, former Attorney General Alfred Sears says he doesn't agree with the way the government is handling it. He's recommending a slower pace and a revised approach. Members of the Shantytown Action Task Force gave out final notices to residents of the 11 Shantytowns on New Providence on Monday to pack up their belongings and to evacuate all unregulated buildings. The deadline has been extended to August 10th, but some residents have since come forward asking the government for more time. However, former Attorney General Alfred Sears QC said he does not agree with the way that the government is handling the issue.
I personally disagree, because I believe that in this kind of approach, it does not separate those persons who may be here without a status from those who have been living in these communities with Bahamian citizenship, with Bahamian permanent residency, and with work permits.
According to Sears, this goes against the fundamental rights of an individual laid out in the Constitution to be treated with dignity and respect.
What I feel the government needs to articulate is not to project one group of persons as a parasitic community, because people are making contribution. Many persons have been here with work permits, some with permanent residency, and some even with citizenship, that have been making a contribution to the Bahamian society. What needs to happen, I believe, is we need a rational policy of integration.
Sayers says he has yet to see the government put forth an effective plan for integration and a plan on how it will protect our borders from illegal migrants.
That requires careful planning. It requires working within the confines of the Constitution and not pandering to the prejudice of the majority society.
While Sayers says he is not proposing that as a nation we condone illegality, but he says it's an issue that requires rational public policy response, consultation, and engagement of civil society because it's not a simple issue. Reporting for our news, I'm Georgia Bain.
In news from the courts, 3 men today charged with a murder in Culmersville in late June. 24-year-old Tilly Brown in the gray, 25-year-old Theo Williams in the blue, and 21-year-old Shaquille Roll wearing white were hauled before a magistrate this afternoon, facing murder and gun possession charges. The trio is accused of the June 23rd killing of Kendrick Clark at Royal Palm Avenue, Culmersville. They were not required to enter a plea to the charge. The men were further charged with possession of an unlicensed silver revolver. Prosecutors allege that the men were found with the firearm on July 8th. All 3 men pleaded not guilty. Roll was given an additional charge of possession of ammunition. To that, he pleaded not guilty. Today, Williams of Hospital Lane, who was represented by attorney Glendon Roll, claimed he was beaten by officers at the Central Detective Unit. The court also heard that Williams suffered from seizures and required medication. Magistrate Cara Turnquest DeVoe made note of Williams' concerns, adding that his family and attorney would have to make arrangements for him to receive his medication. All 3 men were denied bail and remanded to the Bahamas Department of Corrections until September 27th, when they will return to court and have their matters fast-tracked to the Supreme Court. Still to come on our news, why one religious leader says medical marijuana may be better than some prescription drugs. Plus, union leaders protest the termination of 3 water and sewage employees. The details after this break.